Hey everyone, back into today's video. We're going to have a look at a various mishmash of stuff really today. Not got anything lined up specifically for this Sunday as I normally do. It's still a little bit early to do the CFS 6 month stock ahead. The charts haven't changed over yet for the next 6 months, and also we're too early to do the summer update as well. So I thought just have a quick look at what's going on in the Pacific, and then we'd do a little bit of an extended look for the next month from the CFS model, broken down into weekly periods, and then finish up with the weather for the next 8 to 10 days. Hope you find the video interesting. Now, before I get on with that, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on all of the pages at gazlovids.com. Have a browse through the widgets. If there's any articles that you're interested in, please click through. You'll be able to go off and read the article. Thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on most of the page. They open out in the content, then they close back up again. Thanks for getting involved and giving them a watch. You're helping to pay for the website essentially, so thanks very much for doing that. So just to start off with the situation in the Pacific Ocean, we are seeing signs of El Nino gathering pace really through the equatorial Pacific at the moment. This is the latest sea surface temperature anomaly map from NOAA, NOAA in the United States. This for the whole of the world, but we're specifically interested in this area through the central part of the screen, which is the Pacific Ocean, and this vibrant sort of orange going red now area stretched across the equatorial Pacific is where we've got the signature for El Nino. So El Nino, as I've explained in the ENSO updates, I'll be doing another one of those later on this month probably when all the long range models update. ENSO is a warming of the equatorial Pacific from Peru over towards Indonesia, just there. When you get this warm water rising up to the surface along the equator of the Pacific Ocean, that is the signature for El Nino. El Nino is specifically a southern hemisphere phenomenon affecting places like Australia, Indonesia, South America, but it does also have impacts for the northern hemisphere, but particularly America, and it can also impact the weather in Europe and the UK as well. So that's one of the things that we have to look at, particularly as we start thinking about the winter forecast when we get through towards the latter stages of the year. Anyway, clear evidence that El Nino is gathering pace there. If we have a look at what happened a month ago, what it's looking like a month ago, this is the chart or the map from early April. You can see nowhere near as vibrant with the colours there through the equatorial Pacific, nowhere near as vibrant. Yes, a very, very weak El Nino signature which we was carrying through from the winter. We did have a very, very weak El Nino through last winter, but over the past month clearly we have seen a dramatic warming through the equatorial Pacific. So we are now, I would suggest, in El Nino territory. We've gone from sort of borderline neutral to very slight El Nino conditions, probably into a proper El Nino. Where this goes from here is going to be interesting to find out. The reason this warming has taken place, that the SOI has really crashed over the last few days. Actually, it's been pretty negative for most of April. If we scroll back up here, we can see that the Southern Oscillation Index has been sort of posting really quite negative numbers at times. 21st of April, for instance, coming out at -10, 22nd coming out at -11. The SOI, by the way, is an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere in the Southern Ocean of the Pacific. When you have a very negative SOI, it's basically telling you that the atmosphere is sort of hooking up with the oceans to produce the El Nino. You really need the oceans and the atmosphere to come together and not fight each other, to come together to produce proper sort of El Ninos. And the same is true for La Nina as well, which is the cooling of the equatorial Pacific. If you don't get the oceans and the atmosphere coming together, then you're going to struggle to get these events in place. And with negative numbers through the SOI over the past month, that's telling us that the oceans and the atmosphere are coupling up to produce this El Nino, and that's why we've seen the warming through the past month in the equatorial Pacific, and some very negative numbers from the SOI over the last few days. So the 7th of May for instance, came out at minus 17, and really crashing into the 8th, we go down to minus 32. The 9th goes down to minus 46. That could be record breaking. I'll have to go back and have a look. We can go right back to the 1800s with these SOI numbers from the Australia Meteorological Agency. That's got to be very much on the cusp of being almost record-breaking, I think, minus 46.90 on the 9th of May. And then yesterday, the 10th, goes down to minus 44. Well, actually, it's today, of course. Australia's running ahead of us, obviously. So, yeah, gone really negative with the SOI. That's just going to inflate the El Nino further. So I would expect to see further warming of the Equatorial Pacific over the next few days and weeks. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on that. The CFS V2 forecast for the El Nino event is going very strong with it. As we saw on the last El Nino update, it was going off the scale in terms of what it was predicting. Actually, it's not going off the scale now, but only because NOAA has increased the scale. So instead of finishing at around plus 3, the scale now finishes at plus 4.5. I've never actually seen that they've had to increase the scale on the graph, but there we are. It goes up to minus 4.5. So now we don't go up the scale with the forecast El Nino, but nevertheless it is going above plus 3 Celsius as the temperature anomaly through the Equatorial Pacific. That's a really strong El Nino event. It will be a record breaker. I think the strongest on record was 1997, and that was somewhere around here, plus 2.5. So yeah, the CFS V2 is going for this record breaking El Nino event. It could well be overdoing it. I would be very surprised if we beat 1997. That was a sort of super Nino. I'd be very surprised if we beat that, but I am starting to more and more, as I see these SOI numbers coming in, posting very negative numbers, I am starting to think that we could be in for quite a strong El Nino event starting in the summer, gathering sort of pace as we go through the autumn, and peaking obviously as it always does around Christmas. I would be very surprised if we beat 1997, but as I say, with those SOI numbers being so negative, I am starting to think that this event could be quite a big event, and maybe the biggest that we've seen for a long time. We'll have to keep an eye on it and see where we're going. CFS is almost certainly overdoing how intense it's going to be, but let's keep an eye on what those Southern Oscillation Index numbers are coming out at. Obviously, I'll be doing further updates on this over the next few weeks and months. Now, for the CFS V2 forecast for the coming month, going back to the actual weather, these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. I did JMA Friday looking at the Japanese model and the CFS, and they was both indicating the chance of a cool May, and the CFS is still going with this idea. I just wanted to throw this in to show that there's been no real change in these updates. They update daily, and there's been no real change since we did Friday's update. So the first 500 millibar high anomaly going from the 9th to the 15th of May shows that we've got low pressure out to the northwest, high pressure is down to the southwest. The jet stream is coming through the country, so it's going to be relatively cool and relatively unsettled through the week coming up. Actually, I think the next few days won't be too bad. There should be a fair amount of usable dry weather, but overall it's an unsettled pattern. It will turn more unsettled again towards the end of this coming week. The next 500 millibar high anomaly going from the 16th to 22nd of May looks like this. The high pressure is out to the west of the country with low pressure to the east, the jet stream, and the flow is going like that. So bring the jet stream still through the country. Have got high pressure close to the southwest, so it will sort of moderate the chances of any rain, but it's a cool pattern that, with the high pressure sitting just to the west and the southwest, bringing the jet stream through the country in that way. It's likely to be relatively cool. The best of the dry and warmest weather would be in the west and the southwest, obviously, but it's not a great pattern with the high pressure sitting just there. The next weekly period, this takes us from the 23rd to 29th of May, so this is going through the bank holiday period. And by the way, I'll be doing the first bank holiday update on the events page this evening. It's just coming to time frame of the GFS model now. But this isn't great for the bank holiday weekend, so this looks a bit ominous really, with the high pressure out in the central part of the Atlantic and a trough of low pressure to the southeast of the country across Central Europe. The jet stream goes something like that. So we're under a trough there, and with the low pressure centred over central parts of Europe, that could be particularly grim actually, with the winds coming from the north, northeast, and low pressure to the east, possibly providing a fair amount of rain, especially on the eastern side. That's quite an unusual one, not too sure about that, but if it did come off, so it's coinciding with the bank holiday weekend, so obviously not that great. And then finally we go through to the 30th of May to the 5th of June, the final weekly anomaly, and then we've got northern blocking setting up. We've got red colours appearing over Greenland and Iceland with low pressure going underneath it. That would be cool and probably quite unsettled as well. Jet stream is like that, so it'd probably be on the cool side of the jet. Whenever you get northern blocking over the top of the pole in the summer, it usually is a bad sign, because it means that jet stream is going to ride underneath the northern blocking and take low pressures underneath the block. So it's never a particularly good sign in summer. Never a particularly good sign at any time of the year really, because in winter it means it's going to get very cold, but in summer it usually means it's going to be cool and unsettled. So overall, not a great looking month ahead from the CFS V2. It may be on the pessimistic side. Have to see how it pans out. The temperature anomalies stack up like this. The first weekly period coming out cooler than average from the 9th to the 15th of May. The next weekly period going from the 16th to the 22nd of May coming out significantly cooler than average. We're in those deep green colours there, so that's talking about temperatures at least a degree, maybe more, below average. The next week period, the third weekly period, again very significantly cooler than average. So we are in for a cool May, and it will be our first cooler than average month since August 2014 if it comes off. The final weekly period going from the 30th of May through to the 5th of June, that comes out cooler than average as well. So a very cool period being seen by the CFS V2. It'll be interesting to see. Now we are very close to some warmth. I did the videos earlier in the week talking about the chance that we could get some brief warm weather starting today and peaking on Tuesday. It's not going to come off. That warmth is going to be kept at bay over France and Germany. So you can see how close we are to the warmth on this GFS chart. This is the upper air temperatures for tomorrow. Really, really close to it, but no, it's just being kept at bay by the air coming in off the Atlantic through the British Isles. If you have a look at the temperature, you can see how warm it's going to be across France tomorrow. Temperatures widely up to around 80 Fahrenheit across France, 26, 27, 28 degrees, very widespread. That extends into the Low Countries and Germany as well. But here we are with temperatures. Well, it does get very, very briefly warmer in the far southeast. We could pop up to around 22, that's 72 Fahrenheit, but it's not going to last more than a day. And generally, temperatures tomorrow will be close to the seasonal normal, and then that takes us through into the rest of the week, when actually it probably turns a bit cooler than average later on next week. And then we sort of set up unsettled weather. It's going to be mainly dry up to Wednesday, but then on Thursday low pressure comes in off the Atlantic. Here it is coming in off the Atlantic and brings some quite wet weather in across the country. That carries through into Friday. Going beyond that, here's what we're seeing from the CFS V2 with the high pressure down to the southwest and the low pressure up to the northwest. It means that the flow generally comes from a northwesterly direction. So although it may turn a bit drier at the weekend away from the north and west, it's going to be quite cool, I would think, with the flow coming down from the northwest. And that takes us through next weekend and on up to day 10, which is Wednesday, the 20th of May. And by then it still is an unsettled pattern with high pressure still out to the west, low pressure to the east, bringing down these northerly winds. That is more or less in line with what we've seen from the CFS V2 for the next few weeks coming up. The ECMWF in agreement is for high pressure, but it's going to keep things mainly dry up to Wednesday, but then it relents and that allows low pressure to come in off the Atlantic. But it particularly affects England and Wales, giving the chance of a very wet spell Thursday into Friday. And then we're into that northwesterly flow. It does try to build the Azores high in a little bit over the weekend, but never really comes off, and low pressure then comes back, so we end up by day 10 with high pressure again out to west of the country, very much in line with the GFS. High pressures to the west, deep trough of low pressure over Scandinavia, and bring down these cool sort of northwesterly winds. So it's not looking a great outlook for May, I have to say. There's no real sign of any early summer conditions coming through yet. It will be a little bit warmer in the southeast tomorrow, but that's not going to last very long. And overall, if we take the CFS V2 at face value, generally quite a cool May coming up, and that could extend into the start of June as well. So that's how it's looking. Not a great outlook at this stage, but all of these longer range bowls are high experimental, so don't be too despairing if you want to spell of early summer warmth. And in terms of the bigger picture, of course, all eyes on what's happening in the Pacific, where it looks as though the El Nino really is starting to gather pace. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.